Another major winter storm is likely this weekend, and it could dump a ton of snow. An Arctic blast is about to collide with unseasonably moist air across the central United States this weekend, which will create a major winter storm threat that could lead to a widespread swath of 6 inches or more of snow this weekend into early next week. But this winter storm will be very different from literally anything that we've seen this month. And that is because a dangerous ice risk is likely south of the heaviest snowfall, where warm air will shift the precipitation type from snow to freezing rain. And after this winter storm, there are serious signals that we could see some big, severe weather events as we head into the early to middle portion of March. The next couple of weeks of weather will be absolutely crazy. And I want to jump right into our future radar over the next few days to talk about this upcoming winter storm threat in the United States. And we actually have a couple of different snow threats that I'll be keeping an eye on. And on top of that, severe weather is going to be making a return in early March. And this is what it looks like today. We do have a small little storm system that is currently developing across the Ohio Valley and the Southeast. This is actually going to bring an isolated risk of severe weather today across parts of Mississippi and Alabama with some isolated large hail. Wouldn't even be surprised if we saw a brief tornado back over near Birmingham or in central parts of Mississippi near Jackson. And then on the northern side of that, we have a little bit of light snowfall this morning in areas like Illinois. So Bloomington and Indianapolis, you might have some snowflakes out there this morning, but generally speaking, we're not expecting much more than a coating to maybe 1 inch of snowfall. Later this afternoon into the evening, this storm system is going to be very weak in nature. It will bring a large area of showers and again some thunderstorms across the Dixie Alley. But over here in the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, only a couple of snowflakes are expected this evening. This is not going to be any sort of winter storm. More than anything, it will just be some passing snow showers. On Friday, we're not expecting any sort of major winter weather event to happen. But there could be some light snow across areas in the upper Midwest as an Alberta clipper is going to make its way down towards New England. Guess what, guys? If you're over in New England, we have another shot of snow on Friday into early Saturday. This one is not going to be very significant, but there could be some light snow in some areas, mainly in far northern parts of New England. Now, look at this right here. As we go into Saturday, we will begin to have some moisture coming over the Rockies, and it will start to lead to some light snowfall and a very elongated and narrow corridor basically from Chicago all the way back into Montana. This is going to be underneath an Arctic high-pressure system which is going to be located back over here just to the north of North Dakota. And once we go later into Saturday and early Sunday is when this Arctic high starts to drop further down to the south. And we are basically going to see 2 different rounds of snow and ice from this basically disturbance that's going to be developing. So on Saturday, we are expecting some snow and maybe a little bit of freezing rain to develop basically from central Illinois back into the northeast. But for the most part, this snow is not going to be very heavy. A lot of it is expected to be light to moderate during the late evening on Saturday and into early Sunday. Once we go into late Sunday morning is when things get a lot more interesting. This area of snow will mostly fizzle out across the northeast. Yes, there could be some snow showers left over near Cincinnati and back into Boston and Cape Cod, but again, it's not going to be very heavy. Back over here in the Central Plains, this is where we're going to start to really see that moisture kick into gear from the Pacific, and right underneath that Arctic high is where there's going to be this boundary forming. It's going to be a very sharp boundary between heavy snow, freezing rain, and also just a cold rain. So, starting out Sunday, around lunchtime or so, is when we think this winter activity is really going to start to ramp up. Notice that we have some sleet and freezing rain basically in Kansas City, back into western Kansas, and even near St. Louis. Then we have a larger area and a narrow band of snow that's going to be developing. But this will get a lot more expansive once we go into Sunday evening. This is where the GFS model is showing a pretty significant but again narrow band of heavy snowfall across areas like Indiana back into northern Kansas. Even Kansas City is going to be right on that line where that heavy snow is going to be a possibility. I do want to point out that the models have actually trended south over the last 24 hours. When we were showing you guys this yesterday, it was a lot further to the north, and we had heavy snow back up in Chicago, Des Moines, and even close to Detroit. Now we're talking about it much further south. This is likely going to set up somewhere across the Central Plains into the Ohio Valley. As we go into the overnight hours Sunday into early Monday morning, notice how the snow gets more expansive with our heaviest corridor of snow still being in Kansas, Missouri, Illinois. Freezing rain and sleet trying to set up near Wichita, Kansas, and even Joplin, Missouri. And then, Monday morning is when this storm system starts to move to the east. The good news for right now is that we are not expecting an ice storm if you are in Tennessee. I know we were just hit by a very significant ice storm only a little over a month ago. It looks like our freezing rain line is going to set up in Kentucky, Missouri, and Illinois. I do want to point out, too, that these are pretty approximate locations right now because the models are still shifting back and forth. So, it could change over the next 24 hours, but this is the general area that we're looking at for impacts. Monday morning, the heavy snowfall will continue to track to the east. It'll be mostly impacting Kentucky, West Virginia, Maryland, and back into Delaware. And then by late Monday, into early Tuesday, this storm system will start to fizzle underneath that Arctic high as it continues to basically just track right off to the east. But generally speaking, we are going to be talking about at least periods of heavy snowfall. I do fully expect that we will see some freezing rain. So ice and heavy snow are on the table Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. We're not done there yet though, because as we go into Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, yes, the GFS has another significant snow event happening in the Northeast. We don't exactly know what's going to happen here, as it is still about, 6 to 7 days out from now. But this is definitely another storm system that we need to keep very close eyes on, as it has been showing up on models here for the last several days. And then by late Wednesday and Thursday of next week, this could be the return of significant severe weather events as we are expecting storms to eject again over the Rocky Mountains. So I do think it is going to be a really wild first 7 days of March here across the entire United States. And just look at this train of storms continue throughout the first 2 weeks of March. It could be one of the most active stretches of March that we have seen in a long time if this model were to end up verifying, and overall the synoptic pattern is going to favor it as we are expecting troughing to develop along the west coast during the first 2 weeks of March. So things could get very interesting very quickly. And I do want to repeat that we don't exactly know where all this snow and ice is going to set up and who is exactly going to see the most significant of it, and exactly how much snow we are going to see, or how much ice we're going to see. But this is the GFS model just giving you an idea of how significant this winter storm could be. And yes, this is a pretty big downtrend from yesterday, but nonetheless, we are still talking about the widespread possibility of over 4 inches of snowfall stretching from Kansas City back into the mid-Atlantic. And keep in mind, this forecast could change again over the next 24 hours. This is just a general corridor that we need to be watching for winter storm impacts. This right here is the National Weather Service blend of models, which kind of puts all the different models together. And generally speaking, the confidence is the highest right now in that light blue shaded area for snow still. So that would basically be around Kansas City, just south of Des Moines, south of Chicago, into central Illinois and Indiana, most of Ohio, and then across the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. The numbers again will definitely increase for some areas, and for some areas it's going to decrease. It's just kind of an average of everything here. So again, expect at least several inches of snow here over the next 7 days if you are in the blue shaded areas. If you're in that gray shaded area, there's a lot more uncertainty in terms of snowfall accumulation. Ice accumulation is going to be tricky too. We don't exactly know where this is going to set up yet, but again, just keep an eye out for the forecast here over the next few days. I do think southern central Missouri, back even as far north as Indianapolis, and also across Kentucky and Ohio. You guys should be staying weather aware for the possibility of ice accumulation. For right now, we're not expecting an ice storm, but again, that could change as we get closer to this event happening. And over the next 7 days, we will continue to have a little bit of a temperature roller coaster. We are expecting some Arctic air this weekend and early next week across the Midwest, Great Lakes, and the Northeast. Once we head into the first full week of March, we are expecting warmer than average temperatures for basically the entire United States. Very few of you will actually be below average throughout the first 7 days of March. And then even as we go into the second week of March, we could be talking about some crazy heat. And this could easily lead to a very active start of March when it comes to big storm systems, including the return of large-scale severe weather events. And look at these temperatures once we go into Friday. We are talking about one of the warmest days that we've had so far in 2026, with high temperatures near Chicago nearing 60 degrees. Des Moines about 65, back down towards Dallas, and all across Texas in the 70s and 80s. Saturday will be very interesting as that winter storm attempts to develop across the Midwest and the Central Plains. We are going to have a fairly sharp temperature contrast. Could have a localized area in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, while over in Kansas, Missouri, and even over in Illinois could only be in the 20s and 30s. So, it'll be very interesting to see how that pans out. But again, uncertainty is still relatively high with this winter storm that is upcoming. And then once we go into the middle and end of next week, again, notice how that warm air really starts to surge north again. And this should allow for some big severe weather events. And this right here is 2 weeks from now. But we could be talking about temperatures reaching the 70s as far north as North Dakota, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. So again, the weather is about to get really crazy. The unique nature of this winter storm lies in its complex precipitation structure, where the interaction between Arctic air masses and unseasonably warm, moist air will create a dangerous situation with multiple precipitation types occurring simultaneously across different regions. This setup is particularly concerning because it combines the heavy snow accumulation potential of a major winter storm with the infrastructure-threatening ice accumulation that can cause widespread power outages and dangerous travel conditions. What makes this storm fundamentally different from recent winter weather events is the sharp thermal gradient that will establish itself across the storm system, creating a narrow but intense corridor where heavy snow transitions abruptly to freezing rain and then to cold rain. This type of setup requires precise forecasting because small shifts in the storm track or temperature profile can dramatically change the impacts for any given location. The transition into March severe weather season adds another layer of complexity to the overall pattern, as the same atmospheric dynamics that are creating this winter storm will eventually support the development of severe thunderstorms and potentially significant tornado activity as temperature contrasts become even more pronounced across the country in the coming weeks.